Okay, maybe I won't be riding a unicycle anytime soon, but I'm still capable of learning a new trick or two. Fact of the matter is, I enjoy learning new stuff. I'm Paul Deeds, and that guy on the thumbnail may look a little bit like me, but that's the beauty of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence happens to be one of the things I'm learning more about these days. It's coming along. I'm learning a bit, but the thing is with the AI, it changes so fast that it's hard to keep up with. It seems like every time I turn on the computer, something new is coming out. So it's kind of fun learning. You not only have to learn the new AI, but you have to learn to change with it as quickly as it changes. That can be a challenge. I've always considered myself pretty flexible and adaptable, so that helps. I bought a new laptop not too long ago. It was when I decided to start this YouTube channel here. And I wanted to have something with enough oomph to do the video editing and things I needed to do with it. And there's something about putting a new computer online, whether it's a laptop or a desktop or even a new phone, that's a real challenge. Seems like every time you do it, there's so many new things that you have to change and get used to, getting everything registered and all of that. It's not something I do often enough to be really good at it. So when when it does happen, I have to relearn a bunch of stuff, as well as learn the new things that come along with that. It's always difficult for me to get it up and running the way I want it. It's the laptop I'm on now is still not exactly the way I want it. I'm still learning things. I went from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and that's been a challenge for me, just the way that things are structured now. I got used to Windows 10 pretty well, and some of the basic changes in Windows 11 I'm having some trouble with, but I'm getting there. And learning new software is always fun too. When I got the new laptop, I decided to switch the software I've been using for photo editing and video editing. And I've been using both of those for quite a long time. I was a Corel fan, so I've been with Corel for many years, and I decided to get away from them for a couple of different reasons. So I'm trying some new software now, and learning it is interesting to say the least. I'm getting there. I mean, I'm picking it up slowly. It's like anything else. You learn the things that you have to know in order to make it work, and then as you play around, you learn the things, the add-ons and the details, and it's like anything, like the phones, like computers, anything else. Software is the same way. A lot of the softwares have similar features, so they work about the same way. They may have different names for things, and the layout is usually a little different. But it takes a little while to pick things up. Anything new you're learning is going to take some time to get used to. Along the way here, I've picked up a couple of new cameras too. I've always had a thing for cameras. Ever since I got out of the service, I was a photographer for a while, and I've always enjoyed cameras. When photography went from film to digital, that was a whole different ballgame. Of course, different cameras, different techniques, different editing, everything was different. But we've been with digital photography for quite a while now, so that's not the problem. The problem is every new camera that comes out has features and things that it can do that the others can't do. And like I said, I really enjoy cameras, so I try and stay up with the latest on that. The GoPros, I think I have 4 GoPros now. I use 2 of them basically. As a matter of fact, this video is being shot on a GoPro. I'm pretty comfortable with the GoPro now. I don't use it for much action. At 75, I don't. I was going to say I don't get much action, but that doesn't sound right. Anyway, I'm not that kind of active that I need a. I'm off track now. I don't do the kind of physical action that you need a GoPro action camera for. Let's leave it at that. But I use it for other things. You know, I use it on the motorcycle, clamp it to the handlebars, get some video that way, and it's fun learning. And like everything else, like the phone and everything else, there are so many features in it that I don't use just because they're not things I need. And some of them I probably would use if I knew more about them, but you have to use them to learn them well, if you're following what I mean. And I don't do that. I still using the basic stuff with the GoPros. And also, I recently, not fairly recently, bought a 360 camera, and that was a new deal for me. They've been out for a few years, but I finally picked one up, and that's a whole different ball game in itself. Using the camera is different. The editing is totally different with the 360 camera. It's got some really awesome features, and if you know something about it, I'm sure you know what I mean. My most recent camera is the Osmo Pocket 3, if you know what that is. It's a little small hand. I should have it in my hand. It's a small handheld video camera, but it's got a built-in gimbal, which keeps everything steady and all that. I haven't used that much at all. I just got it recently, so I'm still learning the ins and outs of that. I recently saw an ad online for a 3D, I guess you'd call it a scanner rather than a camera. It works similar to a camera, but it produces a 3D image. I'm not there yet. I'm not sure if I'll ever be there. I'm not sure I have a need for a 3D camera. It's an interesting concept, though. And I don't know if you've noticed this before, but when you get a new interest or start a new activity, it seems like people that have the same interest or have done what you're starting to do come out of the woodwork. It's really an interesting phenomenon with me. I've run into it several times when I've started something new. It seems like every other person you talk to has done it or is doing it or something like that. You just don't hear about it until you have a personal interest in it. Kind of an interesting little side note there. I wonder if you have experienced that at all. Like when I did get into scuba diving, it seemed like every person I talked to, oh yeah, I used to do that, or yeah, I've done that, yeah, I've got my certificate. Really interesting to me. I don't know. I've always kind of liked learning new things, and when I decided to start this YouTube channel there a few months ago, that was a whole new thing to learn. I mean, everybody knows what YouTube is and how to use it, but how to start a channel and what it takes to put a channel together, and that was something new. But there's a ton of information on YouTube, so I ended up using YouTube to learn how to use YouTube. That's a pretty far out concept, but there's not much out there that you can't learn with YouTube. I've got a Jeep Wrangler and recently had some trouble with the ignition. So I was contemplating taking it in to have it looked at, and price of service for vehicles these days is just so crazy, and of course it's not under warranty or anything like that. It's an older one, and I just wasn't willing to pay the price that they're asking to do that. So I said, well, let me see if I can see what I can do for myself. I ended up going to YouTube, and sure enough, there were videos on there on how to fix this problem, and I did. Watched the YouTube a couple of times, more than a couple of times, and ended up fixing the ignition myself. There's still another issue with it, but there are videos on YouTube explaining that too. So like I said, very little that's not on YouTube. If you want to learn something, somebody's got a video on it on YouTube. Like I said, I've always enjoyed learning new things and trying new things. I remember one time my mother asked me, "Are you going to try everything?" And I think I said something like, "Yeah, I hope so." Of course, nobody can try everything, but I like to try a lot of different things. I've had boats for a while and spent a lot of time fishing. At the time I was in southern Michigan, so we had the Great Lakes, great salmon and trout fishing. So I did that for a while and had all the equipment and a nice boat and all that. And then I got into scuba diving, decided I wanted to try scuba diving. I'd always wanted to do that, and timing seemed good, so I did that, and did that around the Great Lakes as well, plus some other unique and interesting places. Maybe I'll do a video on that sometime. I don't know. Then things kind of changed in my life, and decided to give homesteading a try. So that was when I moved to the UP in Michigan and had some property, and decided to see how close to self-sufficiency I could come. that'll be a whole nother video. That's kind of in the works now, but the little spoiler here, nobody is totally self-sufficient. Nobody. Anyway, off track there, off topic. So then when I left the UP, I decided to get back into motorcycling. I had a motorcycle years ago after I got out of the service and got the itch to do it again, and so I bought myself a motorcycle and did one of my bucket list items. If you do bucket list things, one of the things I always wanted to do was go cross country on a motorcycle. And when I got my motorcycle, I ended up doing that a couple of times. It's one of those things that stays with you forever. I've always had something of a sense of adventure. I was never one to go on vacation and lay on the beach or sit at the bar or something like that. If I went on vacation, I wanted to be doing something. That scuba diving kind of fell into that category pretty well. I went on some pretty nice diving vacations. But I always had the sense of adventure. I wanted to do something, exciting. I guess that I kind of draw the line at skydiving. Kathy says she'd like to try it sometime, but that's one she's going to be doing by herself. I don't see myself jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. Sometimes when you learn something new, it means changing how you used to do something or how you did something for a long time. And when you learn something new, it forces you to do it a new way. And sometimes the change is not easy. Sometimes change is the hard part of learning something new. I think the older we get, the less we like change. I know that's certainly my experience with older people, my parents. I probably have some of that myself. I'm kind of the mind that if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't know. I guess I've kind of always felt that way, but I don't know. It's probably getting more pronounced as I get older. We like the familiar. I don't know if maybe it's because our world gets a little smaller. I don't know. What do you think? Sometimes it feels like the change isn't always an improvement, especially if the change is something you're forced into. You get familiar with something and it's working for you, and there's a change comes about, and you don't always look at it as being better. The change is not always better. The things we choose to do, we can choose to not do, so that's a little bit different. But sometimes change is forced upon you, and you have to learn something new involuntarily. I think attitude has a part in that one. If you have an attitude of not wanting to change, it makes the change harder naturally. I remember when the internet was in its, not infancy, but it wasn't very old. And my mother, being old school, liked doing things a certain way. And when it became popular to do things online, it seemed like everybody wanted to do everything online. And that drove my mother crazy. I can still hear her voice. Everything you have to do online. Well, she wasn't online. She wasn't online, so a lot of things I had to do for her, which was fine. I didn't mind doing that. But it irritated her that it had to be done online. She wanted to be able to pick up the phone or write a letter or mail a check, whatever it was. She didn't want to have to do it online or check for something. Check online. Like I've said a couple of times, I've always enjoyed learning new things, and I think I kind of feel that there's an added benefit to that. I've talked about Alzheimer's in some of my other videos and how it runs in my family, my dad's side of the family. And it's said that if you keep your mind active, that it helps fight off the Alzheimer's. So that's, I think, subconsciously, maybe consciously a little bit too. I like to stay active and keep my mind moving. I used to do a lot of crosswords, but I kind of got away from that for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. But if I can keep learning and keep forcing myself to learn new things, it's not always forcing myself, but sometimes it is, I guess. But I think there's a benefit, a health benefit to that too. I've never really been one that got bored. So it's, fighting boredom. Keeping active is a good way good way to fight boredom. If you're prone to boredom, if you stay active, that's certainly helpful. That's not a particular problem I have, but the really nice thing about learning new stuff is there's a ton of new stuff to learn. You think about all the things you know, and it's a ton of information, everything you do know, but think about all the things you don't know. That's mind-boggling if you think about it. So there's always something out there to learn. If you have an interest in something, you can go as deep or as shallow as you want to in learning it. And right now with YouTube and the internet, there isn't anything on there that you can't learn to some degree. People are getting master's degrees online now. That's a crazy thing to me. I'm still working on getting my head around that one. Master's degree online. So when it comes down to it, I may never learn to ride a unicycle, but you can bet that I'll be out there looking for some new software to play with. And who knows what'll go wrong with the Jeep next. Peace and joy till next time.